Okay, this is going to be a weird Thoth video, okay? So, my Thoth has been a standout for me in 2022, okay? For real. Plus, it came out this year, so, of course, I want to, I've been wanting to utilize it. But I wanted to go over something that 2022 taught me this year. And it's one statement, and I've been really using this deck to grapple with what it all means. Now, 2022 was a harsh, very, very harsh year for me and my family. Harsh overall, to be honest with you. Many of tower moments that could possibly have happened to me and my family this year. And I'm not saying it was all bad. I'm just saying that it was mostly bad. So anyways, I digress. You know, life is that. Life is shitty sometimes, right? So anyway, I'll have to look for the card, but I'm really just like using this as a prop because I want to talk about this subject, okay? Actually, we'll use that card. But the the message that I learned was like a quote. I don't even know if anyone has actually said this before, but I wrote it in my Google Calendar to remember it, or my Google Notes to remember it, because it was something that stuck with me all year, okay? And it was the concept of weakness. And for me, weakness is a shadow word, I guess you could say, for me. Throughout the course of like growing up, weakness was always something looked down upon. Sensitivity was always something that was looked down upon. I grapple with that concept now because as a form of self-love, there is a matter of selfishness that needs to be present in self-love because it's called self-love. And there's a selflessness that you must have with the self. And I know that seems kind of contradictory, but to me, like when I think of self-love, it's not, always just like eating that piece of chocolate or whatever, it's harsh. It can be so harsh to, like, throughout the course of this year, let's just say for me. Ooh, that's a good card. Throughout the course of this year, I have found that in a moment of high trauma, of grief, sadness, sensibilities, whatever would overtake me, it took an act of like force, and I mean force that I didn't even know I had, to step back, to take a break, to say, okay, this is my 6th phone call today. I don't have any energy to answer the phone again. And it's like establishing boundaries, right? But then how some people could consider that selfishness, wanting you to be present when you believe you have been. And if you have been, and you have been putting forth the effort, and people still seem like you haven't done enough, then that's a force that you have to pull within yourself to say, okay, is this attitude that you're coming at me with trying to breach a boundary, right? And when you figure out that, yeah, it is, where the hell? Here it is, right here. When you try to figure out that these people or the situation is trying to tear you down, it takes an act. And I've kind of seen this within myself this year, that it's like an act of, I literally had to force myself to walk away from a situation that I would like to stay. I would have liked to stay there, stay in that spot, in that situation, and just drown myself in pity and sorrow, in feeling sorry for myself. I felt like this. I was suspended. I was tethered to something. Like, this is, to me, when I made this reminds me of bungee jumping. Like, I'm tethered to something, but I still get the effects of the free fall, right? And I was not drowning, but it felt like I was about to. And there's like that feeling of being up in a hot air balloon, you know, like, will the wind sweep me away? Will I finally dissipate into nothing? You know, will I fall into the depths? You know, I think that if I look at one of these cards from my other oracle, I keep pulling this one card. It's probably on the bottom because, no, it's not. Here it is. I kept pulling this card. Now, this wasn't like necessarily to the point of stalker card yet, but it was trying to teach me how to drown properly, how to sink into the depths and relish in that feeling for a little while as a form of actual self-love. I felt so disconnected. But there were other moments this year, like the death of my dad, a financial crisis that hit this year really, really hard, really traumatic. All while trying to be, you know, I was pregnant at the time, so it was even more heightened in terms of sensibilities. But anyways, this feeling of suspension and tetherment hit me all the time. And I remember thinking, I'm not weak, I'm strong, I can do this, I can keep doing this, I can keep doing this. But at the same time, I was like, how the hell am I supposed to survive if I can't take care of myself, right? How am I supposed to survive if I fail? If I fail in my self-love practice, the transformation won't be able to complete itself. The ascension of the transformation won't be able to get anywhere because I'm descending. And once I reach this point, I have to learn how to ascend because I've descended, and then I transform in this cauldron down here in death, and then I have to ascend, right? I have to figure out how to become like this mermaid that's gonna, you know, that scene in Harry Potter where he jumps out of the water after he figures out he does have gills. It's kind of like that, what that means to me in terms of this. But it's like when we look at failure, we think about weakness being a form of failure. And to me, this whole year has taught me that you are not weak. You are not weak. I'm going to finish that statement because I haven't told you the statement yet. Okay. There's another part of this year. Futility, uselessness, helplessness. This feeling of, again, tetherment. Ooh, a lot of sevens here. Haven't we noticed that? This feeling of uselessness while being tethered. Like, what's the point of being tethered? What is the point of this? I'm sitting here on a bungee cord, right? But I'm not doing anything but free falling. How is that useful? How is that doing anything towards a goal? How is that doing anything towards betterment, accomplishment, right? What is the purpose of this? And so I just kept thinking and thinking. And then, you know, the Magus would come up and I'd be like, oh my God. You know, I would get so frustrated because I was wanting to drown so hard. I was wanting to just drown, but I was tethered. And then I would be like, okay, so I'm supposed to have my own willpower while I'm drowning or while I'm stuck here, you know, bouncing above the waves. And sometimes readings will be like this for me. I'll get so frustrated because it's not that the meanings or the cards are confusing. It's that I don't want to hear it, right? And that's a huge thing with tarot readings is that sometimes you just don't want to hear the shit. But the Magus would come up and this beautiful blue here. Oh, I love it. And it's blue here in the regular as well. This beautiful card here, this gradation between the purples and the blues and everything. And I just love it. Oh, there's my favorite card in the deck right there on the bottom saying hey to me. I love you too. Anyways, so the Magus here, I mean, to me, it's communication with the self. It's communication with your own willpower. It's being able to have a conversation with yourself during the bad and the good times, during the unconventional things that happen to you in your life, the 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 times of trouble and the times of grief and the times of sadness and sensibility, but then the times of elation as well. You have to be able to communicate. And the willpower behind all that is suspended until you give it that act, until you force the act, right? Until you use the stylus that's present in this card. So that's what the Magus was trying to tell me, right? And then, you know, these two would come up. And I'd be like, okay, Valor. Now, in this particular card, the only card I put a figure in was this Seven of Wands here. Because to me, Valor, to me, look at that beautiful purple. Oh, I love this so much. Valor, to me, it's an act of selflessness, but there's an act actually happening here. Like, it's the form of you noticing something. Okay, like the firefighter. You notice something, right? You could sit there and be the Magus all day. You could think about it, you could write about it, you could communicate about it with yourself, but that's not an act, right? So when this card came up, yet another 7, okay, really crazy. It just kept dawning on me that I had to act. I had to act for self. The Magus was telling me that this was about me and that this was about my relationship with myself. And I felt somehow disconnected from myself and that I needed to get that back and that everything would work out how it's supposed to. But what is the act? What is the decision that I would make for myself today? What can I decide to do for myself today? And it was more about me lighting this, keeping the fire stoked of the self. You know, it doesn't have to be a full flame. It doesn't have to be a full fire. You know, I just need to keep it going, keep the embers hot. And I can do that by small acts of self-love, you know. So that's what the 7 of Valor was trying to tell me. Now, it's pretty ironic that throughout the course of this year, the sevens were present with me. Like I said, they're not stalker-like, but there was something about them that I wanted to pull out and talk about. That the seven is the card of 2023. And how somehow I was getting prepared for 2023 to let 2022 go, right? And that was huge. The 8s, these two 8s too, the ones I'm about to show you. Prudence came up a few times when I asked the specific question, what do I do to hold strength, I think? Because I was grappling with weakness, laziness, selfishness, right? And thinking that there were people that were going to look down on me if I did this, this, and this, right? Oh my God, just so much crap. But then when Prudence came up and I saw this very manicured, planned out garden here, for me, this 8, Prudence, is about not suffocating yourself with the work. There's put a plan in place. There's a plan, you execute it, you lay all these plants down in a row, in a row, in a row. Sure, the work is arduous. You get into a rut. You can get into a rut. Think about the person that laid all these bulbs here, right? I mean, nowadays you have machines to do it. But if someone had to physically do this, right, it's arduous work. But it's a plan. You do it every year, right? And once it's done and it's beautiful and you've executed it. That's another form of it. And that's an act that I must perform. And then, you know, I kept looking at this bird coming right at me. The storm. She's in the storm. How do I swipe through the bull? How do I eradicate the storm that was inside the brain? You know? I love this card. I love the fact that this is like this watery, but it's not as watery as death, you know, because when you look at death, it's two different waters. This is deeper. This is surface, because these are lily pads, right? Surface level water. And to me, that means life liquids. There's not drowning depths in life liquids. They're trickles. It's like the trickle of water over rock. Smooth trickling in the creek. And all the life and the vegetation in this little bitty amount of water on the creek bed. And this reminds me of life. How when certain things happen to you in your life, you want to think that they are like this, but they're really like this. And you can imbibe your own nurturing, your own sense of life, your own sense of wonder within this. So let me finish the quote. You are not weak. Your signals are. What I've learned through the media, through my own trauma this year, through birthing a child, through actually being pregnant the majority of the year, and then birthing a child at the end of 2022, I've learned that when I look out at the world, I see instincts that are not present. Instincts. People are not following their instincts. They're not following their own body, like what their body's telling them is wrong, what their body's telling them that they need, craving even, you know? There's an instinct loss. There's an interference. And when I wrote the quote down, you are not weak. Your signal is. Your signals are. I thought about this card and I consciously pulled it out because this is a radio tower and there's interference, there's static, there's white noise, and it's in the modern world. We have to be able to push past the white noise, push past modernization, urbanization. We have to push past all that and get back in touch with our instincts. Why? Because if we let it, modernization, urbanization, technology, and I'm not saying any of those things are bad. I'm just saying when we allow them to overtake us, interference stops. There's an interference and there's a boundary there that we may, if it gets built up too far, like this tower, we won't be able to hear our own voice. We won't be able to be our own magus. Okay? And then this futility here, this feeling is right before this. 7 of Swords, 8 of Swords. This feeling of uselessness is where we are at right before the interference comes. And it's I think it's about noticing the illusions, if you will. And I think that, to me, the message of the whole year, all this has been teaching me that my signals are weak. And that somehow I need to clear the interference and get back in touch with my own instincts. What's my body telling me? What's my brain telling me? Oh, duh, I'm worrying too much about this. I need a nap. I need this. I need to eat. Pretty soon, you'll be thirsty and not even go in the kitchen and get yourself a glass of water because no one, the media, your damn YouTube or whatever didn't tell you to go and drink water. I mean, I'm saying that's worst case scenario. I want to get back in touch with my instincts this year, for sure. And maybe this 8, this interference card here is telling me to work on that this year. The 7th year, 2023. But then also my cards of the year. Actually, It's like this. My like card, which is using my birth date plus the year, is the Hermit, which I already know that this is going to be me this year. But then also numerologically, this is the Moon, right? And how these interplay. And it's illusions, right? Back to this. Back to this interference, right? And when I hermit myself, you tend to, in those moments of solitude with media, right? You get back in touch, you want your YouTube as TV, you want to binge watch TV, you want to do this, and this. And it's so easy to let the interference overtake. And then you just can't deal with the silence anymore. But the Moon, there is a path on most Moon cards, okay? There's a path. And it's about walking in the silence. Walking with the illusions on either side of you. Letting them bounce off of you like radio waves, I guess you could say. So that's my message this year to myself. And anyway, if anything, this gave you a little look into my Thoth deck and how beautiful it is. I needed something real world to allow the lessons to come forth. And they really did wonders for me. You are not weak. Your signals are. Get back in touch with your signals. Get back in touch with your instincts and your body, your mind, body, and spirit, or soul, or whatever you want to call that. Much love.